At my son's graduation I expected a hug or thank for all the years I struggled alone. But instead he walked right past me to hug my ex-husband's new wife. The woman who tried to replace me became the one he chose to call mom that day. I'm writing this because maybe someone out there needs to hear it. Maybe someone is standing where I stood 7 years ago, thinking they're smarter than consequences. Maybe they need to know what happens when throw away everything good for something that feels exciting in the moment. It started with a text message, just one innocent text from my old college friend Marcus, who was in town for business. My husband David was working late again. Our 4-year-old son Jamie was finally asleep, and I was sitting alone in our kitchen feeling invisible again. That's the thing nobody tells about being a stay-at-home mom, can be surrounded by people who need constantly and still feel completely alone. David would come home exhausted, barely able to hold a conversation. Jamie needed everything from me, but couldn't give back the kind of connection I was craving. I felt like I was disappearing, piece by piece. Marcus texted, "Remember that little coffee shop on campus where we used to study? Found one just like it." Made me think of, I should have deleted it, should have turned off my phone and gone to bed. Instead I texted back, "I remember everything about those days. Sometimes I miss being that person." That was my first mistake. Not the biggest one, but the first in the wall. We texted for 3 days straight. Innocent stuff at first. Memories about college, jokes about professors, updates on mutual friends. But then it shifted. He started telling me how he remembered my laugh, how I was the smartest person in our philosophy class, how he'd always wondered what would have happened if we'd gotten together back then. I ate it like I was starving. Because I was starving. For attention, for someone to see me as more than just Jamie's mom, or David's wife. Marcus remembered me when I was brilliant and funny and full of potential. Before I became this tired woman in yesterday's clothes who couldn't remember the last time someone looked at me like I mattered. The 4th night, he called. We talked for 2 hours after David fell asleep. Marcus told me about his divorce, how his ex-wife never understood his ambitions. I told him about feeling trapped, about how David and I barely talked anymore except about bills and Jamie's schedule. "Deserve better than that," Marcus said. "We're always meant for something more." Those words. God, those words hit me right in the place where all my resentment lived, because I did feel like I deserved more. I had a master's degree gathering dust while I wiped noses and did endless loads of laundry. I used to have dreams, plans, a whole identity that didn't revolve around someone else's needs. The 5th night, he asked to see me. I said yes. I told David I was going out with my sister. The lie came so easily it scared me. I spent an hour getting ready, wearing a dress I hadn't put on since before Jamie was born. Looking at it in the mirror, I felt like I was waking from a long sleep. Marcus and I met at that coffee shop he'd mentioned. He looked good. Really good. Success suited him. He stood when I walked in, smiled like I was the best thing he'd seen all day. When was the last time David looked at me like that? We talked for hours. He listened to everything I said like it was fascinating. He asked about my opinions, my thoughts, my feelings about things that had nothing to do with household management or child care. I felt smart again, interesting, alive. When he walked me to my car, he hugged me. A long hug that felt like coming home to. Then he kissed me, soft and careful, and I kissed him back. I drove home in a fog, my lips still tingling, my heart hammering. David was asleep on the couch with the TV on. Jamie was upstairs in his little bed, trusting that mommy would always be there, would always make the right choices. I stood in our hallway looking at the family photos on the wall. David and me on our wedding day, both of us so young and hopeful. David holding newborn Jamie in the hospital, tears of joy on his face. Jamie's first steps, first birthday, first day of preschool. A whole built on trust and commitment and love. And I was ready to it all down for someone who made me feel special for a few hours. But I didn't stop. That's the part I have to live with. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I didn't stop. Marcus was in town for 2 more weeks. We met 4 more times. Coffee twice, lunch once, and then dinner at his hotel. I told David I was joining a book club that met in the evenings. Another lie that came too easily. At the hotel, Marcus ordered room service. We drank and talked and laughed, and I felt like again the self I'd lost somewhere between marriage and motherhood and the grinding routine of daily. When he kissed me that night, I didn't pull away. When he told me I was beautiful, I believed him. When he said David was a fool for not appreciating what he had, I agreed. I stayed until midnight. Came home to find David waiting, worried, sick. Where were? I called sister and she said weren't there. I was about to call the police. I looked at my husband, this good man who was genuinely concerned about my safety, and I lied right to his face. Book club ran late, then we went for drinks. I forgot to tell Sarah I was using her as my excuse. Sorry for worrying. He believed me because he trusted me. Because in 8 years of marriage, I'd never given him a reason not to. That trust was about to become the weapon I used to destroy our family. Marcus left town, but we didn't stop talking. If anything, the distance made it more intense. We texted constantly, had long phone calls when David was at work, sent each other photos and messages that got more and more inappropriate. I was living 2 lives. Daytime he was still Jamie's mom, still David's wife, going through the motions of our routine, but inside I was completely focused on Marcus. Every buzz of my phone made my heart race. I started hiding my phone, deleting messages, making excuses to leave the room for important calls. David noticed I was different. Happier, he said, more energetic. He thought maybe I was finally adjusting to being home with Jamie, finding my groove as a mom. The irony makes me sick now. My husband was pleased that I seemed more content, not knowing that my contentment came from betraying him every single day. 3 months after Marcus left, he got a job transfer to our city. He was moving back permanently. It's fate, he told me over the phone. We're meant to be together. Know that, right? I did know it. Or I thought I did. I was completely caught in this fantasy that Marcus and I were soulmates, that my marriage to David was just a mistake I needed to correct. In my twisted logic, I was doing David a favor by ending our marriage before we both more years being wrong for each other. Marcus found an apartment 15 minutes from our house. We started meeting regularly. Coffee dates that turned into lunch dates that turned into afternoon hotel visits. I became an expert at lying. Dentist appointments, grocery runs, visits with friends David had never met. I had a whole social that gave me cover for my real social. The worst part was how good I got at compartmentalizing. I could come home from being with Marcus and help Jamie with his puzzles, make dinner for my family, curl on the couch with David to watch TV. I could be completely present for them while secretly planning my escape, because that's what it was, an escape plan. Marcus and I talked about it constantly. How I would leave David, how we'd handle custody arrangements where we'd live together. He painted this picture of our future that seemed so much brighter than my current reality. Travel, intellectual conversations, a partner who truly understood me. Or in suburbia, he'd tell me. Or meant for so much more than soccer mom duties. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because the alternative was admitting that I was a grown woman who'd made my own choices and needed to live with the consequences, instead of blowing my family for a fantasy. The affair went on for 8 months. 8 months of lying to the people who loved me most. 8 months of teaching my son that mommy sometimes had very important errands. That meant leaving him with babysitters more and more often. 8 months of letting my husband think we were working through a rough patch in our marriage, when really I was just trying to figure out the best way to abandon him. David started suggesting marriage counseling, date nights, a weekend away, just the two of us. He could tell something was wrong and he was fighting for our relationship while I was secretly planning its funeral. I love, he'd say, holding me at night. Whatever's going on with us, we can fix it, and me and Jamie were a team. We can get through anything. I would lie there in his arms, smelling his familiar smell, feeling the weight of his love and trust, and plan what I was going to tell him when I asked for a divorce. The end came suddenly. Marcus got impatient. I'm tired of sneaking around, he said during one of our hotel afternoons. I want to wake up every morning. I want to take places and not worry about who might see us. When are going to leave him? Soon, I promised. I just need to figure out the right way to tell Jamie. But every time I looked at my 4-year-old son, I lost my nerve. How do explain to a little boy that mommy is leaving daddy because she found someone who makes her feel more special? How do tell a child that the family he depends on is ending because mommy decided she wanted something different? Marcus gave me an ultimatum. Either tell David by the end of the month, or I'm going to tell him. I'm not going to keep being dirty secret. That night I came home to find David in the kitchen making Jamie's favorite dinner. Mac and cheese with dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. Jamie was at the table coloring, his little tongue poking out in concentration. David was humming while he cooked, occasionally making dinosaur noises to make Jamie giggle. This was my family. These were the people who loved me unconditionally. And I was about to destroy their world because I was selfish and weak and convinced I deserved better. I opened my mouth to tell David we needed to talk. Instead, Jamie looked from his coloring book and said, "Mommy, look, I drew our family." He held a picture, 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a house. A tall figure labeled DEDY, a medium figure labeled MY, and a small figure labeled JME. We were all smiling, all connected, all together. "That's beautiful, baby," I managed to say. David came over to look. "That's going on the refrigerator for sure. Right, mommy?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. But looking at that drawing, something shifted in my chest. For just a moment, the fog of my infatuation cleared, and I saw what I was about to do. Really saw it. I was about to take that happy little boy's family away from him. I was about to betray the man who'd loved me faithfully for 8 years. I was about to destroy everything good and stable in my for someone I'd known for less than a year. The moment passed. The fog rolled back in. Marcus's words echoed in my head, "Deserve better, or meant for more." 3 days later, David found out everything. David found out because I was careless. I thought I'd deleted all the messages, but I missed one. A text from Marcus that came through while I was in the shower. "Me. Can't wait to hold again tomorrow. I love." David was using my phone to show Jamie photos from our last vacation when the message popped. When I came out of the bathroom, David was sitting on our bed holding my phone. His face was completely white. Jamie was still in the living room watching cartoons, oblivious to the fact that his world was about to implode. "Who is Marcus?" David asked quietly. I could have lied, should have lied. Instead, the weight of 8 months of deception just collapsed on me, and I told him everything. David didn't yell. He didn't throw things or call me names. He just sat there listening as I destroyed him with the truth. When I finished talking, he was quiet for a long time. "How long?" he finally asked. 8 months. He said it like he was trying to understand a foreign language. "Been lying to me for 8 months. David, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." He looked at me then and I saw something in his eyes. "Yes, did," he said. "Meant for it to happen every single day for 8 months. Every time lied to me. Every time left our son with a babysitter to go be with him. Every time came home and pretended to love me. Meant for all of it to happen." He was right. I had meant for it to happen. That was the truth I couldn't hide from anymore. David moved into the guest room that night. We told Jamie that daddy was sleeping in there because mommy was sick and might be contagious. Another lie, but what was one more? The divorce was brutal. Not because David was vindictive, but because he was thorough. He hired a good lawyer and fought for primary custody of Jamie. My affair gave him grounds that made me look like an unfit mother. Marcus, who'd been so eager for me to leave my marriage, suddenly became much less available once my marriage actually ended. Turned out, the thrill was in the chase. Once I was free and the relationship was no longer forbidden, he lost interest fast. "Maybe we moved too quickly," he said 3 weeks after David filed for divorce. "Maybe we should take some time to figure out what we really want." What he really wanted was to date other people. What I really wanted was my family back, but it was too late for that. The divorce took a year to finalize. A year of living in a tiny apartment, seeing my son every other weekend, watching David transform from a heartbroken husband into a strong single father who didn't need me anymore. Marcus and I lasted 2 more months after he got cold feet. He ended it via text message. "This is too complicated. I'm not ready for all this drama." The drama. That's what he called the destruction of my marriage and the devastation of my child. Drama. I spent the next year in therapy, trying to understand how I'd convinced that throwing away my family was a good idea. My therapist helped me see that I'd been looking for external validation to fix internal problems, using Marcus as a band-aid for my own insecurities and dissatisfaction. But understanding why I did it didn't undo what I'd done. David met Sarah 2 years after our divorce was finalized. She was everything I wasn't. Kind where I'd been selfish. Loyal where I'd been unfaithful. Present patient where I'd been impulsive. Jamie loved her immediately. I watched from the sidelines as Sarah became the mother I should have been. She went to Jamie's school plays, helped with homework, packed his lunches with little notes. She didn't try to replace me, but she filled the space I'd left empty when I chose Marcus over my family. When David and Sarah got engaged, Jamie was 6, he called to tell me the news himself. "Sarah's going to be my stepmom," he said, his little voice bubbling with excitement. "And she said I can help pick out decorations for the wedding." I said I was happy for him. I even managed to sound like I meant it. The wedding was beautiful. I saw the photos on social media. Jamie walked Sarah down the aisle as David's best man. In the pictures, he looked happier than I'd seen him since before the divorce. Sarah looked radiant. David looked peaceful in a way he never had with me. I wasn't invited. Not that I expected to be. Years passed. I rebuilt my slowly carefully, got a job, made some friends, went back to therapy whenever the loneliness got too heavy to carry alone. I dated occasionally but never seriously. How do trust someone when know how easily trust can be broken? How do promise forever when know how quickly forever can become never mine? Jamie and I maintained a relationship, but it was different. Polite, careful. He loved me because I was his mother, but he didn't trust me the way he trusted Sarah. Couldn't rely on me the way he relied on her. When he was 12, he started asking if he could skip some of his weekends with me to out with friends or stay for Sarah's family dinners. I said yes because what else could I do? Demand that he spend time with the mother who'd abandoned him for a man who dumped her via text. By high school, our weekends became phone calls. Our phone calls became text messages. I went to his games when I could, his school events when he remembered to invite me, but I was becoming a footnote in his while Sarah was writing the main chapters. Last month, Jamie graduated high school, valedictorian, full scholarship to college. The kind of kid any mother would be proud to call hers. I got to the ceremony early, found a good seat, wore the dress I'd been saving for special occasions. I brought flowers and a card with a check for his college expenses. I was so proud of him, so grateful that despite everything I'd put him through, he'd grown to be this incredible young man. But when his name was called and he walked across that stage, diploma in hand, he looked out into the audience and his face lit when he saw David and Sarah. He waved at them, mouthed, "I love," in their direction. He didn't see me at all. After the ceremony, I made my way through the crowd of families celebrating their graduates. I saw Jamie surrounded by Sarah's parents, David's parents, friends from school. Sarah had organized a whole celebration with balloons and a cake and a photographer. I waited at the edge of the group with my flowers, rehearsing what I'd say. How proud I was, how sorry I still was, how much I loved him. Finally there was a break in the crowd. Jamie was standing with David and Sarah, all three of them beaming. This was my moment. I walked with my big "Congratulations, honey! I'm so proud of." He turned and saw me and for just a second his smile faltered. Then he recovered, gave me a polite hug and said, "Thanks for coming, Mom." But it wasn't the kind of hug give someone are excited to see. It was the kind of hug give someone are obligated to acknowledge. Before I could give him the flowers, before I could tell him how proud I was, before I could have the moment I'd been imagining for weeks, his friend called his name from across the room. "Gotta go," Jamie said, already turning away. "Thanks again for coming." And then he was gone, swallowed by a crowd of people who'd actually been there for the important moments of his senior year. I stood there holding my flowers, watching my son celebrate the biggest achievement of his young with everyone except me. But the worst part came later. After most of the crowd had cleared out, I was getting ready to leave when I saw it happen. Jamie found Sarah standing by herself, packing decorations. He went to her, wrapped her in the kind of hug I'd been hoping to get. The kind of hug that means everything. Then he said something that made her cry happy tears. "Thank Mom," he said, "for everything. I couldn't have done any of this without Mom." He called her Mom. Standing there in my good dress with my wilted flowers, I finally understood what I'd really lost all those years ago when I chose Marcus over my family. I didn't just lose my marriage. I didn't just lose my husband. I lost my chance to be the mother my son would thank at graduation. Sarah got to be that person because she showed every day for 13 years while I was busy regretting the choice that made me miss those days in the first place. I left without saying goodbye to anyone. Drove home to my empty apartment, the flowers in the trash, and finally cried for everything I destroyed. Tomorrow Jamie leaves for college. He'll text me when he gets settled, send updates when he remembers, maybe call on holidays. But Sarah will be the one he turns to when he's homesick, the one he brings his girlfriend home to meet, the one he asks to plan his wedding someday. Sarah will be his mom in all the ways that matter because she earned it by being present while I was busy being selfish. That affair cost me 8 months of lying, 1 year of heartbreak, and a lifetime of watching someone else love my family better than I did. The woman who destroyed my marriage was me, but the woman who replaced me did it by simply showing every day with the love I'd thrown away like it meant nothing. Some mistakes don't just change, they change who's get to be part of. And mine taught me that sometimes the person thinker betraying isn't spouse, it's the child who needed to choose them over everyone else, especially